So the water quality assessment lab, we will be doing 3 times throughout the semester. And this lab meets the objective of Chem 151 of connecting the relevance of chemistry to our everyday life because we all need water. And especially if you are a farmer or your family farms, water is incredibly, incredibly important. And it's important to all of us, whether we're a farmer or not. So for this lab, I want you to carefully read the introduction, and if you're doing this lab at home, there are 3 chemical parameters that you will be testing. The first is pH, and pH is basically a measure of how acidic water is. If water is too acidic or too basic, then it's very difficult for life forms such as invertebrates and plants to exist in the water. You do have 2 sets of pH strips in your lab kit. One of the orange strips, you don't want to use those. You want to use the pH strip that says Iowa DNR, and you should have 3 in your bag. You're going to use one for each time you do this experiment. So you'll be doing the water quality testing 3 times throughout the semester. You will use the table or the color-coded key that's on your laminated sheet in your lab kit to determine what the pH is. And as you go through the lab, not only does the lab show you show you where you're going to get the directions to do the testing, which is on your laminated sheet, but it also gives you some information about what range is healthy. For example, for pH, let's go back up here. For pH, aquatic life can exist between pH range of 6.5 and 9. And then it also lets you know what the typical ranges are for that parameter, in this case pH, for the rivers and lakes of Iowa or for different bodies of water. Then you'll also be testing nitrogen as nitrate and nitrite. And there's some more information about nitrate and nitrite. You have to follow these directions very carefully because the time that elapses matters. And then you'll use this key on your laminated sheet to determine what the levels are. And any level of 20 and 50 milligrams per liter of nitrate is of concern, and for nitrate, 0.3 milligrams per liter is of concern. And then some typical ranges for nitrate. And nitrate is known as a nutrient, and what that means is it's a nutrient for algae. And if there's too much algae in the water, it just causes all sorts of problems. So we want to make sure the nitrate levels are relatively small, and nitrate can come from a variety of sources, probably fertilizers and animal wastes are the most important contributors in agricultural locations such as northern Iowa. You'll also be testing for chloride, and again, follow the directions carefully on the laminated strip and then compare your values. And by comparing your values, I mean use the table to determine what your value is. Now, phosphorus and dissolved oxygen will be tested by students in the lab. But if you're at home, you're just going to be doing those first 3. So get your materials out. If you are collecting a water sample from a pond on your property or a stream nearby, just be really, really careful about how you collect that water sample. You can just use a cup or a clean bottle to get that water. You want to test it very soon after you collect it. You don't want to let it sit around. And if you are collecting water, as I said, just be super, super careful. If you cannot collect water carefully, then just use tap water. That will be fine for this experiment. In terms of disposal, the strips can be thrown away in the trash, and of course your water sample can be thrown away in the trash as well. So follow the directions carefully. I recommend that you read them thoroughly before you start the experiment so you're prepared. One of the things you may have to do is download an app on your phone for GPS. And if you're just using tap water, then you can just record the address of your home. So your data is going to be put into this Google Docs. So let me get to that. And The vast majority of the directions after you get your water sample are all about filling in this Google Docs. So we're going to gather information throughout just the area of northern Iowa, and you're going to contribute it to this data, and you want to be sure to carefully enter all the data. So entering the data is going to be 75% of your lab report, and then 25% of your lab report is going to be contributing to the discussion board. Now you'll see here it says it has 0 points. I have to do that or else the gradebook can't take it. So when I calculate your lab report grade, what I'll do is I'll take your discussion board grade, multiply it by 25%, and add that to your lab report grade, which is the data that you put in the Google Docs, and multiply that by 0.75. You'll be able to find your discussion grade in the grading rubric. You just won't find it in the grade book. And then if you have any questions about how I calculate this, I can go over that in more detail, but that's how your grade is going to be calculated. So 75% of your grade is putting the data in the Google Docs, and then the other 25% is the discussion board.